first things first, let's talk about house prices, because that's kind of like really on the forefront for us. We deal with people all the time that are looking to buy a house. The prices are what the price is. The rate is what it is. But then we have affordability. So those two, to me, go hand in hand, where affordability is really low because prices are high, rates are high, and we did not have a very steep bottoming out like we thought we might.
Yeah, no, I like that. We're starting with that topic first because it's all about home ownership, right? And especially if you're a homeowner, this is great news for all of us homeowners. Kind of bad news for people who are still on the fence and just thinking about that. They may want to reconsider their thoughts.
100%. And just to start it off right off the bat, the national home prices have now erased last year's gains, right? So this year, we're hitting new highs, both seasonally adjusted and non-seasonally adjusted. So throughout the year, houses have been going up. And although we saw a small correction, I mean, the data is showing that there's no signs of slowing down. So for those that were timing the market, you're going to be timing it for a long time.
Rough pill to swallow. And to cite the article you're talking about, Brian, is month over month, home prices increased in more than 60% of markets, with the notable exceptions in Austin and San Antonio, where prices declined actually month to month in June, as on a seasonally adjusted basis. So 60% of markets going up again is not a crash.
Crazy.
And there's a lot of conversation on the internet about, there's going to be a crash, imminent crash. And that's fine. Yeah. And I know we're on the internet too. Sometimes a broken clock's only right twice a day. Sometimes we get things only right twice a day. I get it. But there's just too much crash talk. The fundamentals aren't there from a supply and demand perspective. There is enough demand because people still need shelter. They still need a house. They're either going to rent that house or they're going to buy it and live in it, which means that depending on your income and your qualifications, you're either going to be a renter or you're going to be a buyer.
That's correct.
That demand is built into our economic structure, into our society, and into our housing industry.
That's a really good way to put it.
But here's the thing, guys. Back in the day, there's always the peaks and valleys, right? Yeah. Peaks and valleys. So we used to always say every 10 years, we're going to see a market correction, And so this market correction is very different than most. Mm-hmm. This is the first time that, I've been in the industry since 2005, and in 2008, remember when we went through that, there was a lot of supply. That's why homes crashed. That's why it was a meltdown. Like things just crashed. We don't have an inventory right now. And then we got to remember the last couple of years, we refinanced people to their just lowest interest rates. Now, homeowners are thinking, why do I want to sell this home with that low interest rate? I'd rather keep this thing. So those are the challenges. This is a different market. Even though people say we were going to crash, I don't see no crash in sight.
And I feel like a lot of people go and say that it's going to crash based on past experience, right? And it's so easy to blame it on what happened before than really take the time to educate yourself, look at what your micro market is doing, look what your your state market is doing, and then from there take a decision. Is it really crashing or things are just adjusting?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's a really good point because we're gonna talk about Blackstone here in a minute too. But it's like, at what point are they buyers? Like, so when you look at the price of something, if I called you and said, hey, this is 10% off today. Are you interested? No, call me back when it's 20% off. Yeah. Okay, well, that means you're saying, I expect there to be a 20% correction in an industry that has been wildly refinanced. Like you said, the very months ago, you're like, we refinanced the whole planet.
Basically, the whole planet.
Right. So we have this inventory problem, which means that if there is an inventory problem, then people are willing to pay the market price so that they can get in, which includes these private asset firms like Blackstone. Yeah. And maybe a 10% price change is enough for them to bite, which means they're not going to wait for 20. They're not going to wait for 30%. They're going to go bite at 10 because then that puts it in their camp and they're going to just hold that place in perpetuity.
Well, I mean, you just look it over to buyers when as soon as rates drop 0.5%, 0.25%, the market floods just because that quarter or that 0.5 percentage is it good enough for them to be like, hey, now this makes more sense than me in my situation right now.
It changes that buying power, which then leans into the affordability part of our conversation where, it just requires a lot more heavy lift on money every month for people to qualify. I mean, just put that in the context, like, and again, maybe some people will argue this is crash relevant or not, but when you look at affordability being at its 38-year low, that's actually unhealthy. Yeah. And too much affordability is also unhealthy because when we had too much access to housing, the bottom ended up falling out because we gave housing to people that didn't actually qualify. We had products that allowed them to get in that were not qualifiable, right?
Got it.
And now we're on the other end of the spectrum where we have stringent guidelines.
Too qualified.
Yeah, and now you have to be like overly qualified to get in, which is also creating a part of this affordability crunch.
Kind of like eating or not eating, right?
Yeah. Should I eat? Should I not eat?
Let's talk about this in terms of calories.
Yeah, there you go.